A few stories were coming to mind as I was reading that, friends, and a very good morning to all of you once again. Now, there was the story where, we make too much of, for example, when I was reading that line just now, of exactitude of definitions, that even of pronunciation, you have to, let's say, pronounce a mantra in a certain way. And of course, it is better to pronounce it because phonation does have a quality, does have a vibration to it. And it's better to pronounce a mantra properly than wrongly. However, the intention, the bhav, the reason why one is saying it, the longing with which one is saying it, it's just like a different language, no? You may not understand a language, but can you deny there are perhaps no saints in that language? No, we don't understand, but you see somebody and you see their eyes sometimes. You see how they are speaking, how they are perhaps performing a piece of music, Swami used to say. And you may not understand anything about the words of the music, but the music reaches your heart, tears well up in your eyes, or you see somebody across from a distance sometimes. And I remember one time I was traveling by train and I was in a certain location and I was totally in the middle of college students. I was traveling alone, I think, for some reason. And it was a second class compartment, which I enjoyed very much. If little bit of the company is also harmonious and supportive, you might say. But I sat there, all these college students came down with their drums and guitars and they started chatting. And I was like, oh, I took a deep breath. I said, oh, Divine Mother, if this is what you want me to, go through or be with, it's fine. It's going to be a 1.5 day journey. We must ultimately learn to love everyone. So I'll take it up as a practice. And just half a minute later, after that, somebody said to me, Sir, one of our friends, he's got a ticket on the other side, about 6 compartments away. But we all really want to be together. Do you mind exchanging seats? And did I mind? I thanked them and I said, No, I don't mind. I think I'll go there. And guess what? Suddenly, 6 compartments away, I found myself in the company of 5 Buddhist monks who were also traveling the same route, and they were just adjusting their bags. I was in my yellows, they were in their, I think, the maroon color. And it was just, we saw each other. They were not even talking to each other so much. They were just content, looking out the window at the simple things of life. Their baggage was minimal. And we just then got talking, and there was little talk, but there was just harmony through and through. The same train, same compartment, the environment made a lot of difference. The point was, they were, you might say, from a different practice, slightly different practice, but nonetheless, I enjoyed their company very, very much, as you can guess. But coming back to this theme, I was saying about the mantra, they say that Sri Yukteswarji, his name actually is some sort of a tongue twister for the Western audience, and especially it was so for Rajarsi Janakananda, who was Yogananda's foremost disciple. And in his satsangs, he would sometimes pronounce Sri Ukteshwar Ji or Ukteshwar Ji or something. Swami writes, I forget exactly. He breaks down the word, and somebody once took offense to that, and they're like, you know, he should pronounce that name properly. I don't know how the masters would feel about it. I don't know how Sri Yukteswar would feel about his name being mispronounced that way. And Swami only laughed and he said, oh, does it matter that he's not able to take that name properly when in his meditations Sri Yukteswar has come and blessed him at the spiritual eye. He has given him a visit in person and so many times in visions. And of course, you will remember the sweetness of the love Sri Yukteswar ji expressed as he told Paramahansa Yogananda ji that please thank all your disciples. And then as Master elaborated who is doing what, how they've helped him, Sri Yukteswar ji particularly sent love for Rajarsi Janakananda, that sometimes the human mind, having, if it is not engaged as that verse in the Bhagavad Gita said, to the highest. Now let's accept it right away. Almost nobody learns what is the highest. We have to on some level understand it through the mind. Above all, we Feel it in the heart. You go to a place, you meet a person, you read a certain book, you hear a quote. And I remember just yesterday I was reflecting, there's a quote circulating around of a very wonderful man, and somebody asked him, this is of Ratan Tata. And over the years, even in printed books by well-meaning and established publishers, there's a quote of his. And somebody recently asked him in an interview, they started the interview, they said, people love you, adore you, but tell us, how did you come upon this quote? Is this, by the way, your quote? And you see, the journalist was very intelligent because it doesn't suit the personality of the man we know. And Ratan Tata simply said, he said, I know it's said to be one of my most famous ones, but I don't know how that even got started. I never uttered those words. I've never put them on paper, which is to say that the human mind can sometimes, you have to feel it in your heart. The mind will not give you those answers. It will take you up to a certain distance. The mind may confirm what the heart feels, but the feeling that we get cannot be replaced. So in the beginning, let us say we do not know what is the truth, but slowly, slowly, if we do not stretch ourselves, like Yogananda ji said, like a rubber band, he said, you stretch it some, and it stretches, and you say, oh, this is wonderful. Then you see kids playing, they stretch it a little bit more, and it stretches to that extent. Now, of course, a rubber band physically has a limit. It will break after a while. Not so with the human mind, not so with our heart's feelings. Ultimately, Yogananda ji, as he was writing in those words, he said, omnipresence is what we are. We have come from. We are, you might say, in this little limited rubber band of a body, rubber band of a mind, a rubber band of a heart. If we do not stretch it every now and then through some project, through some service, through some reading, through our meditations, through some act of, like Christ said, it's easy to love those who love you. But I ask you to love your enemies. I ask you ultimately to love everyone the way you love yourself. And of course, you wonder, how does that power come from? We wonder. Well, it has to. That is exactly, just for loving a few people, we don't need to perhaps directly turn to God, even though ultimately we realize His is the only existence, His is the only power, that without Him, nothing exists. But He has given us this self-imposed little, you might say, self means He gave it to us. He put this little, you might say, chip in us that we think I am this ego. But ultimately, that rubber band of an ego says, I can't be so small. Why do I feel the need for greater joy? Why do I feel the need to expand my love? Where is this thought coming to serve other people? And you say, I must be greater than this body. I must be outliving greater than this lifespan of 80, 100, 200 years, whatever one might be able to live. That when we face those situations which are beyond our daily capacity, our self-imposed limitations we made, that is when we need help. We realize, oh, this is, like people say, oh, but I'm only human. Swami says, no, it means a lot to be human. Every generation defines being human, sometimes in lesser and lesser and lesser ways. Whereas, what did God have in mind when He created human beings? So Master Swami used to say, tell yourself, you're trying to be human, but it means a lot. Human beings almost, were meant to be saints. Yes, there was a little play. God created us so we could find Him. But even in that creation, it is good to live. We are happy when we live an exalted, you might say, from an exalted level of realization. Now, coming back to how do we understand truth? If those Pharisees were thinking, this is what our books say, you should wash your hands, you should take the Sabbath day, do not work or heal people on that day. Similarly, many times people say, okay, what time do you wake up? Are you a vegetarian? Are you a non-vegetarian? Do you fast? I know all those practices are wonderful. They are moving. They take us in that positive direction. However, Master said, for example, he said, don't make food your religion. Keep God at the center, not a spinach or a radish or a piece of garlic at the center of your religion. That the human mind, now you may say, oh, I'll never do that. But trust me, it does happen. The mind is quick to judge. The mind also, as Swami said, and this happens to the wisest of people sometimes, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita. I'll read those lines, that the very spiritual leaders whose job it is to uphold dharma, to, you might say, remind people, remind themselves to be as close as possible to God. He said, through the ages, we see that again and again, unfortunately. Yes, the positive side does happen. Spiritual leaders do become saints. They not only uphold the dharma, they prune the very tree of religion itself. God works through them to do that. They bring about changes, especially through avatars. But then, if we come back, there is also, Swami says, a lot of what we see is dilution, a lot of it's okay, oh, I understand you're human. Well, what do we really do if we do that to people, especially on the spiritual path? Let's say somebody's not seeking the truth, it's okay. But let's take a more simple example. If a child woke up one day and he said, Mom, I don't feel like brushing my teeth. Can you stop insisting that? I look at all these videos of wild animals. No, but none of them brush their teeth, mother. Even a good friend of mine is not brushing his teeth. And imagine the mother says, well, out of deep love for you, my child, I allow you not to brush your teeth. What will happen a few years later? Well, he's going to have cavities in his teeth. And he's going to curse his mother. So, did she do a service to him? Not at all. Similarly, imagine you go to a doctor and he tells you, oh, don't worry, you are feeling low, you're feeling a little bit, let's say, depression, and your bones are weak, just eat these capsules twice a day. And you say, how wonderful, what a wonderful doctor. I'm glad I met this award-winning doctor, and now my problems will be taken care of. Temporarily, they will. You will enjoy the freedom of lack of discipline, the fantastic irresponsibility. You will enjoy it for a while. But then what will happen? You'll realize after a while, wait a minute, my energy is not really growing. I haven't been able to push back this illness. If anything, these medicines are increasing. The troubles are increasing. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my health. One by one, the castle of my body is being attacked by illnesses. And what's going on? So again, did the doctor do you a service? Not at all. Similarly, on the spiritual path, we do a service to ourselves, to God, to the masters who've come before us, and above all, to those who are in need, which is one another, by reminding ourselves what really matters in the end. We are all on this journey, you might say. Master said that, he said, I will come again and again if need be. I'm paraphrasing a longer poem of his called God's Boatmen. He said, as long as one stray brother is left by the wayside weeping, I will come with bleeding feet to help him. Similarly, Swami said he expects you and me, all of us, to help ourselves and to help others. So I want to narrate a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite stories on the theme of devotion. And it also shows the multiple layers, or you might say, where we could get caught up, where we could get satisfied. Because you see, let's say I go out in the world today, somebody may say, oh, you're an excellent doctor. I'll say, thank you. I always had that feeling. Thank you for confirming. Or somebody may say, oh, you're an excellent son. I said, thank you, thank you. And I look around, I say, yeah, I'm much better than quite a few people. I think I should not worry so much about improving myself. By and large, I'm a good person. Well, on the spiritual path, yes, you should be a good person. Most people are quite good to come onto the spiritual path also. But the question is not, are you good or not, or how good you are? The question is, are you finding God? Are you moving closer to Him? Or are you, once again, like Kriyananda ji used to warn us, over 1 million human incarnations, he said, be careful. I hope you're not making another mistake another time and patting yourself on the back for being a good boy or a good girl. So let's look at this story, that beautiful thing that happened in Ramayana between Ram and Bharat. King Janaka, Sita's father, is involved. Yog Vashishta, their family guru, is involved. All the mothers of the brothers over there are involved, and everybody was there. The kingdom was involved. After Raja Dashrath had left his body, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman decide to go to the forest. And this is a very interesting thing. They don't declare this is a story of devotion, but you will see, friends, it is your and my story. And there are so many layers to it. And one by one, the layers are peeled off. So, anyway, here we go. That Dashrath, of course, passed away. The kingdom is in mourning, and Bharat comes to know that his mother has so arranged and taken a promise from Ram that Ram and Sita and then Lakshman were with them, would go to the forest for so many years. Bharat will inherit the kingdom. So, of course, Bharat is not happy about it. He's extremely loyal and loving to his guru and his brother, Ram. The kingdom is not happy. And by the time this story is being enacted, Kaikai realizes her mistake and she's not happy and she's repenting and shedding tears before Ram to not punish her by going to the forest to return. The family guru Yog Vashishta is involved, and all of them descend at this forest hermitage just at the edge of the forest where Ram is then about to begin the journey. And all of them are saying, please come back. Your willingness is amazing. There is no reason why you need to prove that you can also do what you said you will do, spend 14 years in the forest. Besides, your father has now left, and it becomes much more critical for you as the oldest brother to come back, inherit the kingdom. The people want you back. Bharat wants you back. So you see right there are 5 intellectual reasons we have given for Ram to come back, and we want Ram to come back. Who can lead the kingdom better than Ram? Please come back. It seems like a very wonderful thing to say, deeply devotional. And just at that moment, King Janaka arrives with his wife because their daughter Sita is about to go, and they thought they'll bless her, meet her one last time before she goes. And seeing all of this, and Ram is adamant, he said, no, I have to go. And he's giving some of his reasons. I won't go in the detail. But finally, Yog Vashishta turns to King Janaka and he said, Lord, you're the wisest of all. Why don't you solve this problem? This is a very big dilemma we are all facing. And by the way, Yogananda ji said Lahari Mahashaya in a past life was King Janaka. So I just thought I'll mention that. So what happened over there then is King Janaka, very interestingly, he closed his eyes. He said, oh, all of you are wonderful, great souls. You are wise, learned, Yoga Vashishta. Why have you called me to solve this? But anyway, he says, give me a moment. And he meditates for a brief moment. And he said, may the Lord speak through me. And he asks the Lord to please speak through me. And then he gives a very beautiful account of things. He said, now there is the law. There is the written law, you might say, like the Pharisees were quoting from the books. It is written in the book, it's written in the scriptures, and the law is what upholds the universe. He says, Ram, you're the upholder of that dharma, of that divine law. And he said, but there is one thing. He said, without the dharma, the universe will be in chaos. So dharma is so important. However, he said, there is only one thing which supersedes dharma itself. And what is that thing? He said, that thing is love. And he said, Bharat has love for you. And he said, so I feel so far, Bharat is on the winning side. And hearing this, you can imagine everybody was wiping their tears. They were so happy. Bharat actually got up and he almost took the crown which he had brought. And he said, then Lord Janaka, please put this on brother Ram's head and let's take him back. He said, I haven't finished yet, Bharat. So Bharat is now concerned. What is remaining? You said love is greater than the law. I have love. I have devotion. And then he asked him, he said, you say you have love, but love also has certain rules. For it to have the power over law, it needs to follow some of its own rules. And he says, what can you do for Ram? And right away Bharat said, nothing is more valuable to a person than his life. He said, right now I can give my life for Lord Ram. Such is my love. And King Janaka just smiled and he said, my son, sometimes giving up your life is much easier than to live for your beloved. He said, since you have professed so much that you love Ram, in order for you to be a true devotee, why don't you ask Ram, your object of love, what you should be doing? What does he want you to do rather than tell him what you want to do? And in that moment, everybody, Yoga Vashishta had a smile, Lord Ram had a smile on his face. Everybody again for a moment sank back because they understood what that means. And here's the important thing that Bharat said to King Janaka. He said, you have opened my eyes and lifted the delusion that has saved me from potential lifetimes of wandering. And then, of course, he asked Ram. Ram said to him, I won't go in that side. Ram said, take care of this kingdom for 14 years. And then he played a little joke. He said, well, since you are wanting me to come back, actually, I'll listen to you. I'll come back. And Bharat said, really? He said, yes, but I'll come back after 14 years. Why don't you run this kingdom for 14 years? The point is, friends, I'll explain 2 points over here. First of all, your and my situation is like Ram. This certainly is not our kingdom. It's not our final home. And this is God's creation. It's Ram's creation, you might say. It is Christ's creation. Like Christ would say, I am about my Father's business. This is the Heavenly Father's creation. It's his business. However, he wants us temporarily to grow by taking care of it, not own it, but by taking care of it, by being responsible. Otherwise, you can say, oh, this is God's world. He knows very well what to do. It doesn't work like that. That is laziness. That is inaction. It is self-involvement of the ego. It's a lot of things. And that those are the layers in which ego and devotion can get trapped. I love you, but I won't do what you're saying. That was actually all the difference between Radha and the other gopis. And again, I could share different stories, but Master narrated a few stories where the gopis were like, oh no, if I put my foot on Sri Krishna's head, which he was recommending them to do to relieve a headache, they said, oh God, I'll go to hell. I'll go to hell. And they were looking at each other. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And Radha came in and she said, my Lord, and she saw him writhing on the ground. And my Lord, I just heard you have a headache. What can I do to relieve your headache? He said, if only you would put your foot on my forehead. And she said, is that all? And right away she did that. And the gopis were like, oh no, he's the Lord of the universe. You will surely go to hell, Radha. And they were concerned for her. And she said, is that all you're thinking? I'll be so happy to go to hell 1,000 times if it relieves the headache of my Lord. That level of devotion, that level of self-forgetfulness is the highest goal. And again, it's no surprise that thousands of years ago, it was there in the Ramayana, it's there in all the scriptures, it was there in the Mahabharata, it was there when Christ was talking to those Pharisees, that they were mistaken. Yes, you should wash your hands. Yes, you should eat a good diet. Yes, you should take some time out and seclude once a week, as they call it, the Sabbath day, and be. But if God tells you to do otherwise, then that because he dictates what you and I do. There was a time when Swami Kriyananda came as a monk. He was in the monastery. Naturally, he was meditating long hours, long hours. And Yoganandaji one day gave him some work, and next day he saw him and they met. And Master said, Walter, did you finish that work I gave you? You never came back? Swami said, oh sir, I'm so sorry. I was meditating today. Hence I couldn't finish the work. And Master said, well, in that case, please meditate less. And Swami was a bit surprised. And which Master was saying that, who are you working for? That now meditating more is exactly what Master said we should do. But that is the law. Then you have to see the application of the law, the spirit of the law, the rightness of the law has to be felt in the heart. And like, I would like to read this line over here. That devotion is the deep longing to commune with, as Christ was also saying over there, and to know the only reality. It's not enough to just say, I love God and the gurus. How much are you communing with them? How much are we listening to them? How often are we asking them what they want us to do? And how often are we able to live up to that high standard? And I'd like to close with this little quote of Paramahansa Yogananda Ji's. Somebody asked him, why is Rajarsi Janakananda your foremost disciple? Why do you call him your foremost? How did he advance so quickly? And Yogananda Ji said, he knows how to listen. And then Swami used to add to that. He said, you didn't have to repeat anything with Rajarsi Janakananda. Master would say it, he would feel it, Master would say it, and it was done. Same thing with Yogananda Ji's most advanced lady disciple, Sister Gyanamata. She would tell the nuns, when Master asks for something, say yes first, make it snappy, and then think how we are going to go about it and accomplish it. Which is again to say that for a devotee, now, of course, friends, I said in the beginning, this is not how things work in the, you might say, world, that those kind of rules are not expected, those kinds of targets are not set. But on the spiritual path, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, leaving all lesser duties, if you fulfill the highest duty of loving God, Guru, who is an expression of God, communing with Him, he says, you will be absolved of all those sins. And what is a sin? A sin or evil is the absence of joy. For a while, we may do those lesser things. For a while, we may enjoy not brushing our teeth, or not eating the medicine or doing the exercise the doctor has given us. But ultimately, that will turn into a sin because it will take our joy away. And you'll say, why am I not in joy? Well, because perhaps, like Christ said to St. Francis, one day St. Francis, he was improving. He gave all his family wealth, clothes, he invited his friends, and they all did the same thing. Even then, he was feeling the absence of divine joy for a moment. And he said, Lord, why am I not happy? Everyone says I'm a good person, but why am I still not happy? And Christ simply said to him, oh, Francis, how could you ever be happy without me? That level of communion ultimately is what will bring us guidance, will ultimately bring us happiness, and will ultimately bring us the gift of all gifts, God Himself. So, keeping lesser rules aside, let us reaffirm, renew that devotion to God every single day. God bless you, and let's do